كان أولى جامعة هندسة مدنية في المستوى الأول.
January 8th, government forces in Khartoum open fire on unarmed protesters. A teenager, Mohammed al-Fatih, is among the first to die. His mother tells us he knew there was a chance he'd be killed that day.
أمنيتنا في الدنيا إنه شنو؟ زي ما هو قتل ولدنا يموت. يتعدم زي ما هو قتله يتعدم. القصاص بس ما عنده حاجة تانية إن شاء الله.
Sudanese President البشير is ousted, but the crowds gather still outside the military headquarters. Today they're chanting, "Only blood washes blood." They want justice for the dozens of lives lost during the pro-democracy protests, but it could have been so much worse. CNN has learned that in January, Russian advisors to the government drew up plans to suppress the protests. Government sources in Sudan say they worked from an office in Khartoum, belonging to an obscure Russian mining company called Invest.
السلام عليكم. ازيكم؟ نحن بنفتش في ناس الشركة الروسية ديل موجودين؟ We just asked in those offices and they told us that this was another mining company, not Invest, but this is the exact address that we've been given by numerous sources. And there really isn't any other Russian company matching the description that we were given of Invest right here.
CNN has discovered that Invest had sophisticated plans to disrupt the protests, painting them as a foreign plot, fabricating evidence that protesters were being paid, that they were destroying mosques and schools.
The evidence comes from thousands of documents shared with us by the London-based Dossier Centre. They paint a picture of an operation prepared to go to great lengths to keep al-Bashir in power. But why would an obscure mining company care?
Because Invest is part of a business empire of Yevgeny Prigozhin, one of Russia's most prominent oligarchs and a man close to President Vladimir Putin. The documents reviewed by CNN offer no confirmation that official Russian security agencies were involved directly in trying to suppress the protests in Sudan. But Sudan was at the heart of a Russian drive to expand its influence in Africa. Russia had bet big on al-Bashir. It wanted logistical help for their navy at Port Sudan. In January, activists circulated images of heavily armed men observing the protests. Government and military sources in Sudan say they were private Russian contractors embedded with Sudanese government forces.
At the same time, Invest was working on a plan to discredit the leaders of this process, recommending that looters, so-called looters, should be executed, putting together a social media campaign suggesting that Israel was behind the process, and saying that lesbian, gay and bisexual activists were working among the protesters, something that would have been utterly unacceptable in the deeply Islamic and conservative society here in Sudan.
Multiple government and military sources in Sudan tell CNN that Russian advisors were placed in government ministries and the National Intelligence Service. According to one senior figure in Bashir's regime, their plans involved what he called minimal but acceptable loss of life. The regime did begin to implement the Invest plan, smearing students as trying to foment civil war, limiting internet access, and even devising a fake social media campaign to start disputes and disinformation. The same playbook US prosecutors say Russia's Internet Research Agency used to disrupt the 2016 presidential election. The agency and Invest both tied to Yevgeny Prigozhin. He's previously denied any ties to election meddling, and calls to his company for this report went unanswered. And when he apparently felt Sudan's government was slow to act, Prigozhin evidently wanted more. In a letter to Bashir in mid-March, he accused the government of inaction and warned that the lack of active steps to overcome the crisis is likely to lead to even more serious consequences. As the process gained strength, Prigozhin wrote again, praising Bashir as a wise and far-sighted leader, but urging immediate reforms. Senior officials in Khartoum tell us that Bashir hesitated. Within a week, he was gone. But Invest is not. The documents we've reviewed show that it has close ties to Sudan's military, and they're in charge now. The families of the fallen pray that their sacrifices are not in vain.
المهم مبسوطة إنه محقق حلم ولدي أهو. الحمد لله وإن شاء الله. الله العظيم.
The Kremlin and its oligarchs may have other ideas, but for now, here in Khartoum, the fight for freedom continues. نعمة الباقر CNN, Khartoum, Sudan.